Howdy, folks. Widgett Walls from needcoffee.com here. Back again for another Wayhomer review. Here's how it works for the uninitiated. I have just left the cinema, which is back over that way, and I have seen a film. There I am. And I'm going to tell you about that film on my way home, because presumably it saves time. Sometimes not so much. Anyway, tonight we are here to talk about Frozen 2. Okay, Frozen 2, synopsis first. So, yes, after the events of obviously, spoilers for Frozen 1. I don't know why you're watching this if you haven't seen Frozen 1. But anyway, Frozen ended with everyone more or less happily ever after. And Elsa was Queen of Arendelle and everything was lovely. So, Frozen 2 starts and things start to happen. Weird things start to happen. And there is these weird things cause Elsa and our heroes to have to go out into the world and solve a particular mystery that we didn't know was a mystery because they hadn't gone back and retroactively put the mystery in place yet. So they have to go out into the world and discover this mystery and thus, save the kingdom again. And that's pretty much the story that I can tell you without spoiling anything. Because the trailers have done a very good job of not really giving you any information that could potentially let you know where it was going. So kudos for that. But anyway, that's all you need to know about what it's about. So, first things first, let me just say about Frozen real quick, where I'm coming from with this. Frozen, I was so ready to dislike Frozen. I know I talk about expectations and to go in with as little expectations as possible, but admittedly, knowing that it was set up to be a Broadway musical from the get-go, I just felt very skeptical and cynical about the whole thing. So I was so ready to not like this movie. And Frozen 1 was fantastic. I mean, it was just really, really good. It had good songs, and it had good characters, good characterization. I liked the animation, I liked the character designs, and it did one of my favorite things, which we've talked about here before, which is not subverting expectations, but also subverting the Disney paradigm. It is such fun when someone knows that you know what they're supposed to be doing and can use that against you. The mind of the audience is the greatest weapon in the arsenal of whoever, whether it's a writer or a filmmaker or whatever. That is a huge advantage if you know what's going on, or if you could even set up what's going on in the mind of the person viewing or reading or listening or whatever. So I really enjoyed Frozen 1. So just understand that just like there's something that happens a lot with second movies. And I know we could all come up with ones where this doesn't count, like Empire Strikes Back or Godfather Part 2, where they were quality, if not, better than the original. But there is a movie version of the difficult sophomore album. You have the band that has spent 10 or 15 years trying to make it big, then they're a 10 or 15 year overnight success, and they put all of their songs, which they have been crafting for 10 or 15 years and perfecting for 10 or 15 years, onto that first album. And so the first album kicks. And then the second album, because they're so successful, they then have to turn around and crank out a second album in, another year and a half or so. And they only have a year and a half in which to create this second album that is supposed to knock our socks off like the first one did. And so many times that just doesn't happen. So, you know, it's sort of like when I rewatched Iron Man 2. And really, in my mind, the greatest crime of Iron Man 2 is that it's simply not Iron Man 1. And how do you follow Iron Man 1? Well, in the same way, how do you follow Frozen 1? That's how good I think the first movie is. So, I think I managed to clear my expectations knowing that this is a Disney sequel. So it could go any way. And it's you know, Disney sequels were the things that they were cranking out direct to video. You know, Lion King 2, 2.5, 3 and 3/4, whatever they are. They just cranked them out to make a quick buck. And it's one of those things where you go, well, they're gonna make a sequel. The law of relative development doesn't ever enter into it because they just made too much money not to make a sequel. So, but you hope it will be a good sequel. Now, to cut to the chase slightly, it is a good sequel, but it's not a great sequel. And here is, I think, the problem. I know Disney talks about that, like with Pixar, you have to do, the filmmakers have to come up with a story that they think is as good or better than the first film, otherwise the sequel doesn't get made. That's what they say. I believe that when it was just Pixar. Now that it's Disney, but part of the problem is that because Frozen 1 worked so well, they didn't use the same formula because the plot is different. There's different things going on, and there's different messages being portrayed, being communicated. Not messages, big M, but you know, it's not punching you in the face with it, but there are messages there. So there are certain things that they repeated where you go, okay, I see why you're doing this again. I don't know necessarily that you should be doing it again. Like, okay, the first film had a song in which Olaf is misunderstanding something and is singing about how he's basically confused. And being the fool of the movie, he can utter truths that other characters cannot. So let's have another one of those songs, right? Let's have another song where, you know, that involves Kristoff and the reindeer, and, you know, let's just do that again. So some of the setup for the songs is the same as the last film, in my opinion. Now, what saves this is the fact that the songs are good. They're not the first movie good. I mean, I know Let It Go, I know everyone was sick to death of hearing that song, but there's a reason why it got played so much, and that's because it's a good song. There were lots of good songs in the first film. And in the second film, there are good songs, but you know that feeling when you're watching something that's a musical and you go, well, here comes the song. Not even before they stop and before the music kicks in, you go, well, the song's coming right now. I can feel it. I can feel it in the air. The song is coming. That thing that some people hate about musicals, that kind of comes into effect here, but then the songs kick in and they're good. Again, they're not great. You're not gonna. The good news is, I don't think there's anything Let It Go-ish that is going to earworm your head off. So that's a good thing for the collective sanity of mankind, but it is not a good thing for the film. So there is that. There's also the fact that I feel like there was a lot of stuff that they were doing, and I get what they were doing with this new plot that goes on, but it almost feels like it would have been better off being an entire season of some Frozen animated series, which I assume there have been 5 of, but I don't know because I didn't look that up. It feels like it it could have been better served. The story could have been better served if it had been allowed to breathe a bit, as opposed to what it was in this film. Now, it sounds like I'm lambasting this film, and I don't mean to sound that way. Like I said, it was a good movie. It was a good movie, but it was not a great movie. And so it's hard to say that I would only be disappointed in relation with it to the first film, but again, as we've discussed before, when you have a series, when you have a franchise, you can't completely escape what came before it, because that sets up what comes after it. So if you watched Frozen 2 without watching Frozen 1, you'd probably be a bit lost. So they kind of have to go together. So it's good, but it's not great. The MVP of the thing is Josh Gad as Olaf, who, again, because his character can get away with saying anything he wants, he's usually consistently hilarious. And again, that's not to say they've done anything wrong with the characters. It's just, it didn't transcend like the first film. It felt very specifically like a Disney sequel. Because there was so much of it that they repeated the formula from the first film. You know what? Here's what it is. It just got here. Okay, this is why I do this live, because I have to wait till the brain cells wake up after I leave the cinema. It didn't subvert anything. That's the problem. I think that is my main problem. I enjoyed so much about Frozen that it subverted the Disney princess movie paradigm. That platonic form, so to speak. I enjoyed that so much, and that is completely lacking from this film. Now, what do you do once you can't do that again, because people would be expecting it? Were they trying to be subversive by not being subversive? Probably not. But I'm thinking you could actually, come up with some way to subvert the expectations again. And I don't think they really succeeded. There's nothing in here like, there's nothing like the True Love's Kiss thing. There's nothing like the princesses. I mean, the princesses do. I mean, well, that would be a spoiler. But there's less of the someday my prince will come type of thing. So there's no subversion going on, at least none that I could detect. And I think that's what I was lacking and what I really wanted, because they did it so well in the first film. I really think that's it. So again, it's one of those things where, like Iron Man 2, I might go back at some point, watch this again, and feel better about it, since I know what to expect. But right now, I would say it's probably, I want to say 3 cups, but I'm going to be fair and say 3.5, because again, there's good animation, there's good characterization, I really like the voices, and I did enjoy myself. I mean, it's not like I had a bad time, it's just I didn't have a great time. There's a reason why I don't give out so few 5-cup movies, is because to me that is a perfect film. So you kind of have to, you can't just get a little bit better to get like 4 cups or 4.5. You have to keep redoubling your efforts, because it's harder, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So, should you see it? I mean, yeah, if you're a big Frozen fan, you've probably already seen it. If you are, a Disney aficionado, you should probably see it on the big screen. I would say definitely matinee it, or 11 a.m. it, whatever is the cheapest ticket you can find for a big screen. If your heart does not soar at the thought of going to see the film, then you can probably wait until it eventually shows up on Disney Plus. In between Mandalorian season 2 and 3 or whatever. So there you go. that's another Wayhomer in the tank, so to speak. Thanks so much for watching. Trying to get these things back up and running on a more regular basis, which is why we eat so much fiber. So come and see us at needcoffee.com if you have not already, and we will see you next time on the Wayhomer Reviews. Bye.